winter, early spring, to collect the sap as it rises. The sap may be fermented and turned into a delicious and healthful maple wine or beer. To this, birch tips, spruce tips, sassafras roots, etc., can be added for vitamins and as a spring tonic. Most often, though, the sap is cooked down, unfermented, into syrup or sugar, along with honey. Maple syrup is the most pure and healthful of sweeteners. I would also I'd add molasses to that. Molasses is actually pretty darn good for you. Molasses actually does not spike blood sugar the way other sugars do, so it's actually a pretty good alternative for people with diabetic type issues. I mean, check with your doctor, obviously, but molasses doesn't spike the blood sugar. The sap is rich in minerals. It may help regulate blood sugar, by the way. I mean, the sap, seriously, the sap of the maple. It is immune supportive and anti-inflammatory and is good for gastric ulcers. Maple nuts are also of interest. Although they are very nutritious and quite tasty, no breeding has been done for nut production. You would think somebody would have done that over the last, 10,000 years or something, but no, they're still just tiny little lentil-sized nuts. The little seed pod of the maple tree looks like a little wing, and it kind of spirals, as it falls down from the tree. Well, there's actually a little lentil-sized nut in there, and, I eat them like sunflower seeds. I mean, if you can take the time and effort to crack a sunflower seed and eat that little seed, why not eat a maple nut? They're actually quite good. And as I mentioned, the spring leaves of several varieties, especially the Japanese maple, are a tasty spring snack when small and tender. And they're actually used as a garnish in higher end, like Japanese restaurants. I mean, Japanese are pretty obsessive about their food, and it can be among the most expensive food on the face of the earth. And they use a lot of little Japanese maple leaves in their cooking as decoration, but also for flavor. Gerard in the 1500s said, "What?" And remember, this is Elizabethan English, so bear with me. I'll try to make it as plain as I can. "What use the maple hath in medicine, we find nothing written of it." What use the maple hath in medicine, we find nothing written of by the Grecians. I don't think he said nothing, actually, but you know what I'm saying. Pliny, in his 14th book, 8th chapter. By the way, Pliny wrote a lot. So did, Galen. I mean, those two guys. I mean, wow. Now, Galen didn't actually write. He would dictate. He had slaves that wrote for him. But Pliny, I don't know. And I mean, they wrote, wow. But yeah, 14th book, 8th chapter, wrote that the root pounded and applied is a singular remedy for pain of the liver. And it has traditionally been used, actually, really more in Middle Eastern herbal medicine for pain or stitch in the side, liver inflammation issues. Culpeper, about 100 years later, said it was good to open the liver and spleen, obstructions of both the liver and spleen, and eases the pain of the side thence proceeding. An Irish herbal states the root pounded in wine are beneficial for pains in the side. I think we're getting a common use here, right? So let's get up to more modern use. Plants for Future says medicinal uses of sugar maple. A tea made from the inner bark is a good blood tonic, diuretic, and expectorant. It has been used in the treatment of cough, diarrhea, etc. A compound infusion of the bark has been used in drops in treating blindness. The sap has been used for treating sore eyes. The inner bark used as an expectorant and cough remedy. Maple syrup is used in cough syrups and is said to be a liver tonic and kidney cleanser. The Rodale Herb book said, there is considerable evidence of the Indians using an extract of the bark and several sorts of maple for sore eyes. Harold Buhner wrote a great book called Sacred and Herbal Healing Beers. You have to remember our ancestors didn't drink the water. It wasn't clean. They drank a lot of beer and a lot of wine and a lot of whiskey, rum, and all that. But going back thousands of years, I mean, we find beer brewing in ancient Egypt, in the pyramids, etc. Anyway, and really even older than that. I mean, there are beers and evidence of beers found in old ruins of the Celtic tradition that are very prehistoric, and they were actually the Picts, which were destroyed, genocide basically by the Anglo-Saxons. The Picts were a small race of people, Celtic, that were said to have made the best beer on earth, and their recipes were lost with them. But it says indigenous cultures, and he's talking Native Americans, have traditionally used maple sap and bark for skin conditions such as hives and stubborn wounds, as a wash, a decoction for kidney troubles, as a cough remedy, as a diuretic for cramping, as a blood purifier, as a tonic, and as an astringent for bleeding. Oddly, in spite of the pervasiveness and importance of this tree, there is less information on its medicinal use than any other American herb I know of. It's very true. Most herbalists don't know anything about the medicinal uses of trees in general. They're just not taught that in herbal school. The way I learned, the way, I came up as a folk herbalist gives me a great advantage in this, and really has given me the opportunity to tell people about the medicinal uses of trees. Peterson Field Guide to Central and Eastern Medicinal Plants says, of box elder, which is actually one of the maples, American Indians used the inner bark tea as an emetic inducing vomiting. The sap boiled down as a sugar source. Of striped maple, they use the inner bark tea for coughs, cold, bronchitis, kidney infections, gonorrhea, spitting blood, I should say. A wash for swollen limbs. Inner bark tea was used as a wash for paralysis. Historically, bark tea was used as a folk remedy for skin eruptions taken internally and applied as an external wash. Leaf and twig tea used both to allay or induce nausea and induce vomiting depending on the dosage. Of sugar maple, American Indians used the inner bark tea for coughs, diarrhea, as a diuretic, expectorant, and a blood purifier. Maple syrup is said to be a liver tonic, a kidney cleanser, and used in cough syrup. During the maple sap gathering process in spring, New Englanders drank the sap collected in buckets as a spring tonic. So, maple syrup, maple trees, acre species, may be basically unknown among modern herbalists as a medicinal plant, but it's nutritious and incredibly useful. And as I said, you can find them just about anywhere. A few trees can make enough maple wine or beer or whatever you want to call it, whether distilled or not, for all the tinctures an herbalist would need. Think about that. If you're needing a sugar water source, if it were a grid down situation or whatever, and you wanted to make medicinal tinctures, well, all you'd have to do is set up a little distillation system and ferment some sap out of a maple tree, and you'd have your alcoholic base for your tinctures, or you can enjoy it as a beverage. I'd probably do a little both. Anyway, it should not be overlooked. Herbal beers, wines, tinctures are really some of our most effective means of preserving and delivering medicinal herbs. So, for so many reasons, whether you're a woodworker, whether you're a forager, whether you're an herbalist, whether you want to try to eat those maple nuts. And by the way, the squirrels really like those maple nuts. So if you're a squirrel hunter, that's a really good tree to look for squirrels. Anyway, y'all, have a great week. God willing, my voice is going to get straightened out. I've had just a real bad chest cold over Christmas, and it's kind of settled in my throat the past couple of days. Not really bothering me, just I sound funny. So hopefully by next week, I'll be back to normal. Remember, this comes from my book, The Medicinal Trees of the American Southeast, an Herbalist Guide. I've also done medicinal shrubs and woody vines, and my newest on that is medicinal weeds and grasses. So I love telling you about these lesser known herbs that you're not going to find in most herb shops. Most herbalists don't have any idea what they're, that they even have medicinal values. And, overeducated idiots go around telling people to cut down their trees and kill their weeds when they could actually be food and medicine that could save your life in a bad situation. And when it comes to wood, fuel for a fire and cooking and all that, trees are probably our most valuable resource when it comes to actual survival skills when you think about it. So anyway, y'all, have a good one, and I will talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.